It's time for the Movin The Chains podcast. Your home for high school football coverage in the Palmetto State. Every team, every game, every week. And now your hosts, Kevin Thomas and Jerel Hendricks.
Welcome in to Movin The Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks here for our state championship recap show presented by Folly Road. Jerel, we were down in Orangeburg last weekend, man, saw 6 fantastic ball games, the weekend of champions. 2 of them ended up being all-timers. A couple more were decent, a couple more were blowouts, but overall, man, just some great performances from teams all across the state.
Yeah, man, had a great time down in Orangeburg. Just really enjoyed watching some high-level football. That was the expectation here in Weekend of Champions, and excited to recap it. Not excited that this is our last show, but we had a lot of fun this past weekend, and looking forward to talking ball. That's what we do.
Certainly did, man. And today we'll kind of break down all 6 of those games, give a little more in-depth review of that, have our Folly Row question along with some playoff performers and more. As always, check us out on Facebook, Twitter/X, Instagram, YouTube, and more at Movin Chains. MovinChains.com is our website, our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Our weekly preview shows come out Tuesday nights about 7:15 throughout the season. We are done with those for now. We'll still have this recap pod come out on our podcast platforms. We'll have lots of great coach interviews, player interviews still getting dropped throughout the offseason too, so definitely tune in for that as we go through the next few months. Get your Movin The Chains merch. We've got great hats, Richardson hats, some great T-shirts, a gray, black, navy blue, a pink, a gray hoodie, kind of a stonish, whitish hoodie, 2 toboggans as well. Lots of really good stuff. Probably can't get it to you in time for Christmas now, but we can still get it to you a little bit afterwards. So definitely purchase your merch, man. Help the guys out. Help us out. And look good doing it too, man. It's good-looking stuff. Like our logo, is solid. I feel like it's high quality of stuff that we have purchased too. So certainly love to have you repping the Movin The Chains merch if you could. And you can email mtcgear.sc@gmail.com, or you can message us on any social platform to get that done there. But Jerel, let's shout out a few friends of our program before we get rolling here.
Need a new ride to get you to the big game? Founders Federal Credit Union has auto loan rates that'll get you in the driver's seat without breaking the bank. And here's the best part. No payment for up to 90 days. Drive to victory with a loan that suits your budget. Visit foundersfcu.com/auto today and score your dream car with an auto loan from Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Member qualification required.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture wicking, quick drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row. Very good polos.
Jerel, let's work our way from 1A up through the 5A ranks. So we'll start with that 1A game. This was the Thursday night matchup, and that was Big Bad Abbeville. Favorite all year long, man. They took it to Cross 58-20, handled the Trojans pretty well. What did you think about that ball game? One that, we kind of saw coming, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Just with Abbeville, just so much talent, so deep. Coach Nichols just does a fantastic job continually. I think you were reading off his stats at our preview a couple of weeks ago, and won like 45% of his tenure there has been a state championship. So that's just the expectation there. We're overmatched. I mean, in Cross, they have some really good players, but when we looked at it, I mean, going into this week, you really saw the better teams in the upper state You could see that throughout the playoffs. Really happy that Cross made it here, but actually in this game, you just saw Abbeville was able to execute a little bit better. They're a little bit more physical. They were definitely deeper. I think Cross had like 27 kids, 30 max, and that really was the difference in the game. DeMarcus Leach showed out. The big time players for Abbeville really showed out. The great performance for Cross did as well, but it just was not enough, and unfortunately, it was reflected in that score line.
And Cross came out hot, man. They get the ball, get a big kickoff return, and then a few plays later, Carmelo Jones goes to the house, 15, 20-yard run with a nice move in there as well to get in the end zone and go up 7-0. And we're like, 6 after the missed extra point that had Jerel rolling around laughing on the ground for a little bit there.
Yeah, that was not good.
But they took the early lead, man, and like, maybe they can hang around, maybe they can, but like you said, just too much depth for Abbeville with Leach and Norman and Haddon and Baylor and all those guys just getting it done on both sides of the football, really. But Cross, they put up a good fight. Caden Ramsey, like you said, had a big ball game. They had another chance late where they were kind of driving into the first half and threw a pick that Leach ran back like 80-plus yards that they ended up scoring on and kind of took a big lead into the break there. And just – it's tough because, you want to see state title games be competitive, but this one is one that, it just felt like Abbeville is probably a different level than most other 1A teams all season long.
Yeah, for sure. And they petitioned to play in 2A for a reason. I mean, that's where they should be. They're a 2A, title contender. It was kind of funny. There was a little bit of a joke that we might have had a better game if Abbeville and Clinton would have played on Thursday instead. But I'm impressed with Cross, man. That great run they had throughout the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Coach Wright is one of the better coaches in the state. Just really, happy for those guys because they broke through. They've been knocking on the door to get there, especially the last 2 years. I mean, they had 11 wins back to back. So to get to this point was an accomplishment in itself. They're champions, lower state champions, but Abbeville is just kind of a different animal. I'm interested to see what happens with them in the next realignment because I think it's a situation too where you got to just look at them as the prohibitive favorite again next year in 1A and just see if that see if we can get something, from the lower state to make this game a little bit more competitive next year.
Certainly, and they're losing a big senior class, but they'll still have a lot of talent coming back. They always do there at Abbeville. And we could just see it, Jerel, and I don't think we mentioned this or not, but, on the field pregame, like just the number of kids. Like yes. Abbeville had a much larger roster than Cross did there. So hate to see a game like that get out of hand, but hats off to the Panthers, man. 13 titles, and second most all time now, 9 for Coach Nichols. Man, really cool to see what they've done with that program. But let's look now at the opening game of the weekend, the 2A game that I was really excited for, but also kind of got out of hand late, and that was Clinton taking down the Warhorses of Barnwell 35-6. Jerel, what did you see in that ball game?
The big thing for me was just Clinton's physicality and that defense, man. They were swarming. We know Barnwell, they like to get after it on the ground. Obviously, Cam Austin's a dual threat, so he can throw it around a little bit as well. But again, it's like we previewed. There was just a difference, I feel like, in playmakers on the Clinton side. They had a few more playmakers and were able to get it done. But just going back, that defense was just so good for the Red Devils. They stifled anything that Barnwell was trying to do in this game, flying all over the ball. I mean, and it really – there was outside of those first, 5 minutes of game action, this one was just a complete domination as well. So kudos to Clinton and Coach Fountain's bunch. Again, Coach Smith and Barnwell, that was a big senior class too. Those guys getting to this point is an accomplishment. You are champions, but Clinton just proved that they are the superior team in this ballgame.
A game that started out with some big-time fireworks. I think Clinton gets the ball first. Their first play stopped for no gain. Yep. Next play, Tashawn Richardson, 78 yards, 75 yards, whatever it was, out the gate, just gone on a quarterback run there. And then Barnwell answers right back. Jaquan Peoples to the house and the kickoff return, man. I was in the middle of trying to flip the field, walk from one end to the other end, and he's running back the other way. I was like, I got to turn around, man. It's just a fantastic start there to get some scoring right away, but that was kind of the majority of the fireworks there. Clinton just kind of wore down Barnwell with that run attack with Cook and Gilliam and even Clark a little bit too, along with Richardson there. just Barnwell could not get the offense going. You looking back, you think maybe you try to take a couple more, downfield shots. I think Clinton was playing pretty tight on the boys, not a lot of safety help. Maybe try to throw a couple up and kind of, open it up, but couldn't really get much going on that side of the football. They had one drive there early second half where they completed a nice deep ball, got down to like 30 or 25, but ended up getting stopped on fourth down and just could not really get anything going. Because honestly, looking back at it, Jerel, I felt like the Barnwell defense did not play awful. Like they, give up the one long run early. Outside of that, they made Clinton drive the football. They just their offense wasn't getting them off the field enough, it felt like, really to help them kind of hang in there late in that ball game.
Again, it's like you mentioned, they wore them down. I mean, it's a situation too. Like I think the Barnwell defense as well, they did not play bad, gave up the one big play. But yeah, I mean, they just wore them down. The problem here was the Clinton defense. That was the difference, man. They were the best unit on the field for either team. I mean, they just completely stifled anything that Barnwell wanted to do. And it just, the only bad thing about that defense is it shows that they didn't pitch a shutout because of a kickoff return touchdown. Like that's the only bad thing for them. But yeah, they went out, earned that state championship, and they proved that, they were the better squad. And, Barnwell is a good team too. And they just made them, it looked like the gap was much bigger than it was. So that's how good that Clinton defense played.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And super, super excited about these programs. Barnwell had a good run, a few years back where they made a lot of state titles in a row, could not win one. Obviously didn't win it this year either. But, and Coach Garrett kind of, takes a different job a few years back and they hire Coach Smith. A lot of folks didn't really know what to make of that. Was it good? Was it bad? For him to get this program back to Orangeburg here in year 2 of his tenure, really cool to see. A team that just, lost the one game going in to South Aiken. They had a really special season there with a lot of special kids in that team. And then Clinton with Coach Fountain, what he's done since he's taken over, I think 5 years ago now, built that program back up, a program that was in kind of in disarray when he came in, man, and just, bringing them back to being one of the perennial contenders in South Carolina is really cool to see. A team that had not won since 2009. Great to see that the community, packed out the stands. It's really both teams brought good crowds all weekend long, it felt like. But I know that the fans for Clinton love that, man, and he's passionate about that area, passionate about that school, and great to see them get one. And, his third overall, he had 2 at Lamar and 1 now at Clinton. So a guy that knows how to get it done, got it done at the 2A level this year.
Yeah, and I wish there was more like analysis we could provide for this one, but man, it really was. It was that Clinton defense. They were the star of the day and just completely, dictated how this game was played. And that makes it easier for, your offensive coach and head coach to make decisions as well. Like you said, the Barnwell defense didn't play bad, but they knew, that they could just, we don't have to take any chances, and we can just, get into these third and shorts, pick up first downs, and play ball control. We can win this football game. But again, I wanted to talk about the crowd, man. They really set the tone on Thursday. This is a Thursday at 2:00, and it was packed out. They really did set the tone for the rest of the weekend, and I want to give a shout out to both of those communities. Got to see a lot of, people that watch our show, as well. So I want to thank them, for their kind words when we were there.
So in that 2A game, once again, that was Clinton, the Red Devils, taking down the Barnwell Warhorses 35-6. Jerel, the 3A matchup. This is the Saturday noon game here. One that I was looking forward to, not necessarily for the game, but because of the playmakers on both sides, really. Oceanside Collegiate, they end up defeating Belton-Honea Path 35-17. The Land Sharks go back-to-back. They win 2A last year and then 3A this year. Really cool to see what they were able to do, overcome some resiliency there, or to show some resiliency, overcome some adversity with Coach Wiltz kind of stepping out early on in the year. Coach Patterson comes in, they take their lumps, losing to Irmo and Dutch Fork and another big Georgia school, and they end up, getting better and better and better, and then just really controlling this game from the rip. They come out, score early, go up 7-0, and while BHP hung around, they were in the ball game. It never felt like BHP controlled it, I would say.
Most definitely. I want to say, man, with the first 2 state champions that we've talked about, they went down in classification. This is the first one that we see that went up in classification and goes back to back. So how impressive that was for these guys to get it done. This was a game, another one I feel like Oceanside kind of controlled it. There was, a turnover in the second half that kind of made this a little bit interesting. But for the most part, Aiden Manavian and that passing attack was just on point. I mean, I think he had 5 incompletions in this game. They pretty much, I mean, they were going 5 wide on third down, third and short. I mean, that's how
it's different, man. It's different.
That's how confident they were in that particular unit, and they got it done. And I was really impressed with their defense as well. They did have some issues because BHP had to go Wildcat. Quarterback Noah Thomas gets knocked out of this game. So they had to go Wildcat with Quez Henderson and those guys. And, they were really, beating up the right side of the defense. That's where they were attacking. But it was a situation where it was a bend but don't break. BHP makes their hay by big plays. I mean, that's just what they do with their playmakers there. And there was never that huge play. The Oceanside defense, while, they may have been on the field for, long stretches of time, they never gave up that huge explosive play, that 20-yard, 50-yard, touchdown to really kind of change the momentum in this game. And they stuck to their plan. And that's how they won this championship, that passing attack and that bend but don't break defense.
Yeah, very interesting. They got a 2-score lead in the first half, 21-7. Actually hold BHP on a 4th down. The quarterback gets hurt as well, and that late in the first half. And, there's a chance right there where if Oceanside goes down and scores, goes up 3 scores, it's curtains right there. Yeah. But the BHP defense held strong, made them punt it back, go into the break down 14. They come out and they actually score first. They drive down a long drive and score late in the third quarter, make it 21-14. And that's when it got really interesting there because I think the first couple of plays of that following drive, there's a tip pass on a slant that the BHP picks off and runs back to like around the 25-ish yard line, 30-yard line. But Oceanside's defense in the quick change was able to hold up and hold the Bears to a field goal, and that was really the key there. I think if BHP finds a way to get in the end zone, tied up 21-all, all bets are off. But the fact they held them to a field goal, make it 21-17 was really key there for that Landshark defense.
Yeah, for sure. And that was a theme, like another theme in this game is BHP controlled the time of possession.
Oh, yeah.
That goes back. I mean, they had the ball 32 minutes as opposed to Oceanside's 15. And then you look at, they had more first downs, really got it done on the ground. So, I mean, this wasn't a situation too. Like this was a competitive football game. There was just that passing attack for Oceanside was a little bit, more effective than the rushing attack for BHP offensively. And obviously the defense for Oceanside was able to limit BHP, forcing them to take their time to score. So that was the real difference here.
Certainly an interesting ball game. Loved seeing 2 contrasting styles there with Oceanside spreading it out, slinging around with Navy, and obviously Quez Henderson running the rock there for BHP. I want to say Oceanside didn't have more than probably 10 carries in the ball game, so they were not focused on the run. Majority of those were Manavian scrambles or him running around too. So
14.
Really cool they had 14. Wow, that's
14 for 22 yards.
Way more than it felt like for sure. But great ball game there. Hats off to the Landsharks, man. Like I said, that defense was just flying around. Kel Gilchrist, I think, had 15 tackles. They had a big game out of him and Zarzaka and a lot of those guys. Max Moorman, of course, flying around. So really fun to watch them and see how they kind of shut down that explosive Bears attack on Saturday. But once again, Oceanside Collegiate, they go back-to-back. They defeat Belton-Honea Path 35-17 to win the 3A state title. Jerel, the 4A matchup, man. It's not the game of the weekend, the second best, but I mean, it's hard to top this one for sure. 1A, 1B in my book, but that was a rematch of last year's state title game, and this time the South Florence Bruins, they get a little revenge. They come out on top of the Westside Rams 42-41. Man, a fantastic high-scoring ball game.
Yeah, I had a few days to kind of, let my thoughts simmer on this one. I mean, just a hell of a game, man. I mean, could not be more evenly matched. Obviously, a 1-point game comes down to the wire. Again, 2 contrasting styles, but I feel like the difference here in thinking about this one was South Florence hit some big plays in the passing game that kind of made the difference, and they made, I guess, just enough stops. I think they made 3 total stops in this game, obviously the last one being a 3-and-out to give them the advantage. But, I mean, you want to talk about some high-level offensive execution here. I think if you're a defensive guy, you didn't want to watch this game. Both of the defensive coordinators were probably upset when they watched the tape. But, I mean, as a fan of high school football, I could not be more excited to have been a part, in spectating this game.
Both teams go for 450 plus total. I think South Florence 495, Westside 459. And this game, Westside did not have 10 rushes. They had 9 rushes, and the majority of those were Cutter Woods.
It's scrambles.
Cutter Woods scrambling around. We'll get to some more of these stats here later on in our playoff performance. But, man, just a huge game from so many different guys. It started out so well with, Westside just slinging it deep to Camarius Bomar for a touchdown. But then South Florence comes back and just back and forth, the big plays for Westside to Bomar and to Weaver or to Evans or any of those guys was just so fun to watch. And then the South Florence style of really run heavy with Leonard and Gilbert and Jackson, and then popping in the Sellers pass here and there, man, it was just really cool to see how that kind of worked out. I don't know. And it's interesting to ask Coach, Marlowe what their strategy was defensively, because we saw so many big plays for Westside. You wonder if that was one of the things where it's like, hey, we're going to come after you a little bit. We're going to be a little more aggressive, where if they do score, they're going to score fast, and then we'll get the ball back and wear them out. I just don't know.
Not that fast, Kev. Not that fast. Not that. Oh, man, it was
it's
crazy.
Like the offensive performance that Westside had, like they've done that to teams this year, but not to a team like in a state championship. That's what they're doing to one of these teams like that is, got 2 or 3 wins. Like they've scored 40 plus all year long, but it hasn't been we're to throw 5 70+ yard touchdowns. It's a little bit more driving the football. But man, it was crazy what they were able to do. Just didn't have any time possession. They just didn't need it. They were just driving up and down the field. But really, the key sequence to me was late in the first half. They're up 21-7. They get the ball back. Actually have a drop touchdown on this drive. That would have gone up 3 scores. Instead, they're forced to punt. South Florence comes back and scores 39 seconds left. A Messiah Jackson touchdown run to make it 21-14. And they get the ball out of the break. It's always so important to play, I guess, those kind of middle 8 minutes to 4 before the half, 4 after the half. South Florence won that 14-0 because they came right back with the run by. Sorry, my stats are off here. It looks like another run by Jackson, a 1-yard run right out of the break there to tie it up. And that was really the key sequence, to my opinion.
Yeah, man, you looked at me and said that. Like, it was so funny because it just the way that offense was clicking at that point for Westside, I was like, man, there's no way these guys can be stopped.
Right.
And so when you have that situation there, you looked at me like, man, if they go down here and score, they get the ball back, we might have a football game. And I looked at you, I was like, nah, that's not going to happen. This Westside's got this one, man. That offense is humming, and that's exactly what happened. So, man, I'm glad it did because, I love to see close games like this, especially in the state title. So that was an important sequence there. Just very shows the resiliency. And I mean, this is a championship program in South Florence. It shows that they never got down. They got that stroke of luck by the drop touchdown. They took advantage of it, full force.
And they did. It was really cool to see what they did because they stuck to their game plan. Even when they're down 2 scores, they're like, we're not going to do anything different. We're going to keep putting, 6 linemen out there and H-back. And, we're going to try to mash you and pound you. And then when we have to, we'll go one-on-one with Sellers on the outside and he'll make a play. Like that was one thing too, Jerel, that really stuck out to me. Like, you knew South Florence wanted to run the football. You knew they were going to do that. They've got a couple guys over 1,000 yards, another guy who's getting close to that mark as well. If you tell me, like, going into the game, like, all right, South Florence, they had 2 guys go for 100, like, whatever, like, what, all right, that's expected. But really the difference too was Sellers caught 3 touchdowns in like 140 yards. Like, and that was with the Westside DBs with Bomar and Weaver out there. I would not have seen that coming. And he made plays when he had to. Obviously, Jackson made the throws, but really it was about Sellers getting up there and making one-on-one plays when he needed to.
Yeah, Messiah Jackson, 9 of 11 for 134. Jaden Sellers had 7 of those receptions for 121 and all 3 of the touchdowns. I mean, that's what happened here, and I think that's kind of the difference here. And I want to go to these coaches too, man. And this is no disrespect to any of the coaches in the state who I love them all. I mean, this is the best coaching matchup too, I feel like. I mean, I think Coach Lane and Coach Marlowe, obviously 2 state champions, I mean, they were just going back and forth. And that was another cool thing to see here, the chess match. And like you said, they stuck to their styles. It goes all the way to the end. Coach Lane, at the end, goes for 2, obviously. Stuck to his style. I talked to him after the game briefly. I said, Coach, man, No issue with that. Going for 2 there. He looks at me. He said, "Trying to win the football game." Simple as that. And that's what I love to see, man. If you're going to stick to your style, this guy has done it at a high level at multiple schools. And if that's what he said, I'm trying to win a state championship, I'm going after it. You got to trust that man.
Yeah, you mentioned the one late stop that South Florence got there. They got a sack, I guess you'd call it, on third down by Amari Adams to get the ball back, and they drive down and score with 2:12 left. Trey Leonard takes the touchdown run there from 4 yards out. And just an unreal, like so they score with 2:12 left, Jerel. 2:12 left.
Yes.
Westside comes back and scores with 1:52 left. 20 seconds later, a 50-yard bomb from Woods to Bomar, and we're having a chance to get tied up again. That makes it 42-41. Like you said, Westside decides to go for 2. This has been debated, all week long. Everywhere you look, people are saying, "Oh, it's great, it's bad, yada yada yada." And I've kind of got a couple different thoughts on it. Like I guess I understand going for it, obviously, because one, you haven't really stopped South Florence. You're like, hey, if we get to overtime, how are we going to stop them from 10 yards out?
Exactly.
I get that. I get that you want to win the game. On the flip side, you could say, hey, you had a couple timeouts, like with the minute 52. Maybe you take a chance of you make them drive the full field. Maybe you do get the ball back there because they're probably not really a quick strike offense. Maybe there's a chance you get it back. I don't know. But I think really the main issue folks have is if you're going for 2, just let Cutter Woods do something with it. I mean,
Sure.
and not run the Philly special. They ran the Philly special. Honestly, I think it was open, and just the play wasn't made. But when you put the ball in the hands of somebody who's not used to making that decision, sometimes that can happen. But like you said, Jerel, I don't mind going for it, man. You play to win the game, and certainly Coach Lang was doing that. If you get it there and you go up 1, the chances of South Florence making a long drive in a minute and a half is probably pretty low, you would think. So
yes,
I certainly understand the thought and the strategy behind the 2-point decision call there.
Yeah, we've talked about it a couple times since. Love the decision, hate the play call. That's my position on it. You don't need to run a trick play. You've got, arguably the best quarterback in the state. You've got arguably the best playmakers in the state. If you're gonna, it's like when teams, go for it on 4th down and they run a fake field goal or something like that. Man, if you're gonna run it, just put your offense out there. Like you don't have to go gimmicky a lot of these times. So that's the only issue I had with it. Just put the ball in 12's hands, and if you lose that way, especially with him, because he can see it if it breaks down. I mean, he can read the field. And he can scramble, like if it's not there, he's good enough to get in the end zone using his legs too. So that's the only issue I have. But again, hell of a football game. I feel like the only thing that makes me upset about it is we were robbed of overtime. I feel like we should have had more. Like I wanted some free, great football. If the 48 minutes we got just wasn't enough for me.
And it was great, even after that, Westside still had a chance. Like they didn't get the onside kick, but they get the stop.
Did they though? But did they get a chance? Messiah Jackson again coming up huge.
That's true. Well, so I can't remember if they had 1 or 2 timeouts. I can't remember how many it was. But anyway, they used their timeouts. They caused a fumble on one play, goes out of bounds to stop the clock again. Messiah Jackson, a fantastic punt down to the 1-yard line, Jerel. They get the ball with 48 seconds. They've had to go 99 yards. Can't really get anything going. Try a couple deep passes, can't complete anything, and just, kind of end up running out the clock there. And I texted you the next day. I was like, Jerel, if that ball goes in the end zone on the punt, man, they get it at the 20. Does that change things? Because I think it might have.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. You have room to operate. You got time to set up and throw another, a fifth 50-yard bomb to Kamari's Bomar, I guess. But yeah, I think that was the special teams play that really changed the game. I feel like was that punt, and that's going to be overlooked because of the 2-point play and the explosive offense and the ebbs and flow of this game. But that punt may have been the most important play of the game. And like you said, if that rolls another yard and they're at the 20, or if he shanks it, or if it's blocked or something like that, it's a completely different outcome. And we may be talking about Westside instead of South Florence here, but that's why they play the games.
Certainly, and I'll talk about this again later on with one of the other games, but it's really cool to see the big-time players show out in big-time stages like this. I was talking to a buddy last night who's a South Carolina fan, and he keeps up with high school football, and he knows the players, recruits a little bit, but not a ton. He's like, I watched that game Friday, and that Cutter Woods kid, like, I don't know, I don't think he'll start right away, but like, I think he can play. I was like, I've been telling you he can play for 3 years, my man. Like,
yes.
yeah, like he can sling it, man. It's cool to get to see, folks see him and even see, Jaden Sellers make plays, like kids that are going to the next level that people may have heard the names of, but didn't really know how good they were. Awesome to get to see them kind of on a big stage like that this weekend, man, because those two guys showed out along with Bomar and, Weaver. Like, God. I'm talking to my dad, and he's like, where's that Bomar kid going? I was like, well, nowhere right now. And I was like, he needs to go somewhere.
Right. So
it's really cool to see these athletes that we have kind of get that shine and show up in a big game like they did on Friday.
Yeah, man. And that was the cool thing. The coolest thing about this game was just the individual efforts on both sides to try to help their teams win. I mean, just the stars that we know that we followed, especially a lot of these kids being upperclassmen, their last game just giving their all. I mean, we'll talk about this Kamarius Bomar stat line here in a little bit, but that's probably the greatest individual performance in a losing effort in a huge game that I've ever seen. And I mean, just you talk about, it's cliche that teams don't deserve to win or don't deserve to lose, excuse me. Like, you're like, no one deserved to be a loser in this game, man. But that's competition, and that's the sport, and that's why we love it. So a lot of fun here, man.
Certainly. Let's look now at the 5A Division II game. If that game we just talked about was 1A, this one is 1B for the weekend,
sure.
Man. With Northwestern defeating Irmo 34-31, a last-second field goal by Matthew Fish as time expires. Just another fantastic ball game. Two high-level teams, two high-level coaches. Love to see the playmakers again making plays all night long.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is probably the best quarterback battle we saw. I mean, I'm going to take the probably out of it. This is the best quarterback battle we saw this weekend. Finley Polk at Northwestern, A.J. Brand at Irmo, two senior guys, two guys going to play college football. One of them being the state player of the year, the other one winning the state championship. So, I mean, just high-level play in this game from everyone involved. I mean, these are two good defenses, too, like really, really good defenses. And these offenses just executed, so well. Obviously, Finley with the passing game. AJ can do everything. But, he's such a dual threat that a play's never over when he's back there. Comes down to the last minute. I mean, again, ebbs and flows in this game. Huge turnovers in this game. A huge fourth down conversion in this game that kind of changed the momentum back to Northwestern in the second half. I mean, you can't ask much more out of this game. I mean, other than overtime, I guess, like that would be the only thing that you could get, more football. Because even then, you had a walk-off field goal, to win a state championship. Just another heck of a football game.
Back and forth all game long. No team took more than a 7-point lead all night. So it was certainly in grasp of both sides. It felt like throughout the matchup. Started out a little bit sloppy. Had some penalties early on that kind of mucked up the game. It felt like in the first half on both sides, but ended up really getting the scoring going there. The second half, a game that was 14-10 at the break. Irmo hits a last-second field goal to make it 14-10 there. But Northwestern, you can't say enough about what they did offensively, man. Just really fun to watch how they attack that Irmo defense. Coach Walford and Finley Polk kind of said after the game that they knew they were going to go a lot of two high safeties, and that's what Irmo did, and they were able to kind of pick them apart. A lot of seam routes, a lot of kind of post in there, and just stuck to their game plan, hit the flats a lot as well. Just really cool to see him kind of orchestrate that offense, and they did a little bit differently from Irmo, where it wasn't necessarily the big play from Northwestern, more of a big drive after drive, but Irmo hits some big plays with Brand running the football and obviously throwing it up to Murph as well to go get some touchdowns for them. It was really cool to see the kind of contrasting styles there as well.
Yeah, before we get too more into the analysis, I got to ask you this question. I actually had to watch this one. I was driving back home on my phone and listening to the radio broadcast. Who's the player of the game for you for Northwestern? I mean, is it Cameron Vance, Finley Polk, or Matthew Fish? Who's your player of the game here?
Man, it's tough. I probably go Polk because he was the trigger man, and just distributing all night long. Just nuts stat line, 300 plus, 33 for 36 or whatever it was. Just really cool to see him distribute the football like he did. But Vance, that play he made, the one-handed catch and run over the middle, if you haven't seen that highlight, guys, you need to go check it out. It was just awesome. Just goes up, snags it, takes a hit, shakes it off, takes off down the sideline. Just a fantastic football play and a key moment, too, for Northwestern there. It was an all-around team effort. You know, he has a big game. Nichols has a big game. Knox has 2 touchdown catches. Gordon Miles has a big game on the ground. Just so many weapons there for the Trojans was a lot of fun to watch. The one interesting time in this game where it got, I think, the key moment, there's 2 different ones. One of them could have been right off the rip. You know, A.J. Brand fumbles, second or third play. Tamarian Watkins hits him, causes the fumble. Northwestern falls on it. They score right away to go up 7-0. But Irmo keeps fighting back and obviously doesn't give up. But later on in the game, Irmo gets their first lead. Let's see what it would have been. It would have been 24-17. Yeah, 24-17. Northwestern's driving. They have like a 4th and 15 drill. Probably
it was 4th and 15
from the 22, 23-yard line. They go for it. Somehow Polk fits a pass in between 4 defenders on kind of like a skinny post there. Unreal throw. Couldn't have been better coverage, man. Great catch as well. They get down to the 7 or the 8-yard line, score a play or two later on a pass to Cameron Vance. Just that was the big play. That 4th down stop. If you're Irmo and you get that, have a chance to go up 2 scores, I think that could have been it. But Northwestern made the play when they had to.
Yeah, I think that's 100% the play of the game. I mean, if you get that stop, I feel like that's when Irmo finally had the momentum in the game. Like they had captured momentum. They had finally taken the lead. Again, you mentioned it. They started off rough. I mean, you fumble on the second play of the game, quickly turn into a touchdown. You're in a hole. And then, with you getting the first possession, that is tough. And so it finally felt like in that sequence that Irmo had the momentum. You get them backed up 4th and 15, especially like in the red zone or fringe red zone where it's much harder to complete those passes. Finley Polk making that play to Caldwell. I mean, that was the game there. I mean, and you could kind of feel it too. Like once they converted there that like these guys can't be stopped. And you have to think that was such a blow, to that Irmo defense and team as a whole, and such an up like on the, other side of it. Northwestern, they just had to feel invincible at that moment, especially going right there and converting a touchdown. So tying that football game up. But yeah, just such a critical sequence in such a very big game.
And Irmo, I mean, hats off to them. After that touchdown, they didn't quit. Obviously, no. And they get back, but Northwestern is able to force a punt and allows them to kind of take the lead in that ball game, 34-24. Irmo comes back, a big run from A.J. Brand, a big touchdown pass to Murph on just kind of a one-on-one deep ball, and he proved why he's one of the highly coveted receiver recruits across the country. Man, had a couple of big plays on Saturday. Was a lot of fun to see him, but then they scored with 1:43 left, and as Coach Walford said, that was too much time. He's like, we had timeouts, man. Like we had a game plan. They were able to move right down the football field, a couple nice passes to Nichols and Vance and those guys, and they end up actually kind of running down the clock late. I was surprised they didn't try to throw it in the end zone, but they settled for the field goal, and Matthew Fish kicks one there as time expires, a 27-yarder, could have made it from 45, and just absolutely drills it, and the Trojans are state champs.
Yeah, I mean, simple as that. Just go down, drive down the field, kick a game-winning field goal to win a state title, right? It's just with 1 second left. I don't know how I felt about that, with Coach calling a timeout with 1 second left, but man, just complete perfect execution on that. Man, another one. This is a game that was so good. The only thing that could have made it better was just giving me some overtime in it.
Yeah, and I wanted to say this too. I said it on our show on Tuesday, our live show, but I think it's probably going to get overlooked. But just the field goal unit as a whole for Northwestern, fact that they were able to hold up for that field goal, because Jerel, we've seen so many high school football games the last 4, 5, 6 years where if it's a big time kick, like if it's to win the game, whatever. It's a decent chance it's going to get blocked because the protection units are not great, or the kicker is just going to do something really bad and just like flub it outside left, shank it, whatever. Fish drills it. The protection unit gave him plenty of time, man. That was really cool to see because Irmo had their ears pinned back. They were running their best block at that point, man. And the Trojans to hold up there in that special teams game was really cool to see, and have not a ton of pressure and knock that through. But another game like Westside, South Florence, where the players showed out. AJ Brand, a huge game running and throwing, showed why he's such a highly coveted player for Virginia Tech. And then Murph, obviously doing what he does, man. He's a stud who's going to announce at the All-American game, the Under Armour game, here, I think on January 2nd. Can't wait to see where he's going. Jaden Bryant for Irmo getting after on the defensive side, had a big game for them. Northwestern, Finley Polk, of course, scored miles. All the receivers they've got, man, they are so deep. I think, honestly, it's them and Westside for the best wide receiver rooms in the state. Northwestern might be a little bit deeper, honestly. But tons of guys there that can get it done. Defensively, I do want to bring up their defensive line was awesome. Pickett and Greer and those guys were getting after Irmo all night long, really held that run game in check. Brand broke some, but as far as the standard run game, they kind of held that in check. It felt like actually got good pressure, too, on AJ. They did a great job up front. It was fun to watch Pickett especially get after it. Will Massey at the mid-level had a good game. And then Watkins, the safety, outside linebacker, whatever you want to call him, he is a player to watch. I really enjoy watching him fly around. He looks the part. He's big. He's physical. Got a couple of SEC offers already. Certainly well-deserved. He's going to be a stud the next year to watch as well.
Yeah, for sure. I want to shout out the coaches, man. Coach Wofford, breaking through. I mean, that's a pressure cooker of a job. I mean, you are in Football City, USA. You're going to have top-line talent. You have to deliver. I mean, and again, the program there was not at the elite level as it had been when he got there, and he got it back there. And again, they have been knocking on the door of a state championship. Thought they were going to win it last year for sure. They looked invincible last year, but they get it done this year. I think Coach Brand has really built that Irmo program back to prominence here in South Carolina. He's going to lose a little bit, but there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to retool, bring some guys up, and be just as competitive, next year. Coach Brand has done a fantastic job, and really excited to see where Irmo goes in the future.
Certainly. So to cap that 5A Division II game, Northwestern defeats Irmo 34-31. And now the 5A Division I matchup, Dutch Fork, they win again, 3 in a row, 8 out of 9 as they take down Summerville 35-21. An interesting ball game drill where Summerville comes out. They score early with a nice fourth down pass from Cummings to Jaden Kelly Murray. Dutch Fork, of course, comes back, and then the big play, it felt like a big play at the time, was Cummings going down, getting hurt there for the Green Wave. He kind of rolls out, and I think he actually got hurt before he got hit and was out for the game. But the Green Wave backups and playmakers really stepped up. Cooper Kafina played well at the quarterback spot coming in. Javen Williams, a big game running the ball. Jaden Kelly Murray out wide had a huge game. But Dutch Fork is just, the machine keeps rolling. Ethan Offing to Boykin Bickley was a key there. Maurice Anderson had a huge game on the ground. Defensively, the playmakers there with Walker and Smith and Sessions and Salters and just name after name, man. I think they just had a little too much depth, a little too much firepower in the end for the Green Wave.
Yeah, Dutch Fork that's what they do. They make you play their game. That's what makes them successful. And it was seen here. This is really weird to say, but Cummings going down, obviously it makes a difference, but still I don't know if they would have been able to win this game, even if he played the whole way. And that's more of a pat on the back for Kafina and how well he was able to play here. Dutch Fork's just a machine, like you mentioned. Coach Knotts is one of the greatest of all time. And this program is just humming. 8 of 9, that's crazy. If you win 8 of 9 games, that's great.
Yeah.
They've won 8 of 9 state championships at the highest level, and so that just shows the consistency, the buy-in, and it was evidence here in this game. It's just body blows, man. The defense showed a couple cracks that we hadn't seen this year, but the offense, man, they just do what they do. Anderson also had a big game on the ground. And then Summerville, they just didn't have enough, but I feel like they're going to. Especially you mentioned the landlord there. Only being a sophomore, just made some fantastic plays on both sides of the ball. So it was an interesting game to watch. It's a 14-point game, so it wasn't the most competitive. But I was really intrigued, with the storylines, and I'm really intrigued with both of these programs going into next season after watching this game, if that makes any sense.
Well, Jerel, Summerville actually did, I believe, give Dutch Fork their biggest deficit of the season, up 14-6. So the Silver Foxes were trailed by 8 points there in the second quarter.
Yeah.
That's their biggest of the season, which is really interesting to have there. But yeah, I think the key sequence for me, Jerel, the game was 14-all. Summerville gets the ball. They've got it in plus territory, I think he does. They try to run kind of like a rollout throwback wheel, and Kafina ends up getting picked off by Elgin Sessions, the Georgia Tech commit, with about 3.5 to go inside Dutch Fork's 10-yard line. They make a big drive out of that, cap it off with the Maurice Anderson touchdown rush to go up 21-14 going into the break. And that was really the key to me. If somehow Summerville drives down, gets even a field goal, even doesn't get a field goal, even just keeps it tied going into the half, you never know. But with Dutch Fork kind of able to get that last-minute touchdown there, that was a big play in the football game.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like that's kind of what sealed it. And again, that's really the situation that kind of let Dutch Fork kind of play their game from there on out, especially in the second half, and Coach Knotts and his staff, they understood they had a younger quarterback who hadn't played much, back there, and they could, kind of just play a little bit of ball control, rely on their defense again. Kafina, man, he hit in the second half. He hit one of the most beautiful deep ball throws I've seen of the season, to Kelly Murray. But it was a situation where, Dutch Fork just controlled that second half throughout.
They certainly did. And hats off to that Dutch Fork defense. They didn't play their best game probably. They would not be happy giving up some of those big plays, but they had a chance, late in the game where Summerville got the ball back, I think maybe twice, down a score. And the Silver Foxes made a big stop there and got it back, which was, something we've seen all year long, man. Just big play after big play from those guys. The defensive line for them, I felt like, played really well. With Steed and Walker up front, did a great job. We know about the guys at the second and third level, of course, but all the defensive line showed up when they needed them to, with some big sacks and whatnot. But just hats off to Coach Braswell, what he's done there with Dutch Fork. I don't know if he's a guy that wants to be a head coach, but I mean, with the resume he's put together the last several years, it's hard to say that he couldn't get a job if he wanted one, man. That defense is always lights out, and he's kind of the conductor of that and has done a fantastic job there for Coach Knotts. Once again, like I said, 8 out of 9, 3 in a row now for Silver Foxes, man. And they're going to be back next year. They got Offing back at quarterback. They got tons of studs coming in. As always, Riley Salter's anchoring the defense, man. They'll have a chance to do it again. And they're just they're, like I said, they're a machine, man. They just, when they warm up, when they play, it just looks different. Like, it just feels different, man. The way they do it is very professional, and they do a fantastic fantastic job with that team.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I want to give kudos to Summerville for, just the short amount of time they've been able to turn that program around, playing in the state championship game. This is a young bunch too. I mean, they bring some stars back as well. Obviously, got to figure out what they want to do with the quarterback position, if Kafina's the guy next year or not. But I think Summerville is going to be right there in the mix once again for a state title. So it's going to be a fun off season. Again, Dutch Fork, just a machine. They get it done again.
Certainly did. So Dutch Fork, once again, they win the 5A Division I state title 35-21 over Summerville. Jerel, let's shout out some more friends of the program before we move on to the next segment.
At HTC, we're here to keep you connected. Here to provide reliable fiber optic internet with free, fast, and secure HTC Smart Wi-Fi. HTC, here to connect.
With 3 convenient locations in Spartanburg, Duncan, and Greenville, Carolina Orthopedic and Neurosurgical Associates, Kona offers the most advanced training and experience in orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, sports medicine, and pain management in the upstate. Go to kona.care to learn more.
Jerel, I hope you've got your glass of water there beside you. You're going to take a big sip here. We're going to do our playoff performers insured by the Georgia Agency. As I've kind of hinted at throughout these games, we had a ton of studs step up. Jerel's going to have a long list to read here today.
Oh, my God.
For this big weekend of champions, man. As always, appreciate the Georgia Agency for sponsoring the Play Performers, man. We've got our full list, our full blog posted on our website, movingchains.com. It's also shared on our social pages as well. We'd love to give these guys a shout-out. Throughout the season, we always say if you send us the stats, we'll read them on the show. We'll put them on the blog. We'll continue to do that, and we have enjoyed doing that. And, Jerel, if you're ready, man, feel free. If you need me to hop in at some point and read some of these, take a little break, feel free. But let's shout out some of these star-studded performances we saw down in Orangeburg last weekend.
Last one of the season, all these guys are very deserving. We saw some huge performances. Just really excited because these were the state championship games. And Kevin, I'll tell you this, man. the playoffs were fantastic for these performances. So it would be, no different to have it here in the state title games. We'll start off with our boys from Clinton. Quarterback Deshaun Richardson has a TD pass and a rushing TD as well. Brett Young, the linebacker there, some college coach, go get this kid, had 6 tackles and a half TFL. Casey Copeland had 6 tackles and 2 TFLs as well. Going to Barnwell, William Robinson had 12 tackles and also 3 catches for 44 yards. Crew from Abbeville, DeMarcus Leach goes 3 of 5 for 81 yards and a TD, had 11 totes for 118, 2 touchdowns, and also had a pick on defense. That's where he will be playing down in Columbia. Jalen Baylor had 2 catches for 81 yards, a touchdown, 2 tackles, and a pick. Carson Norman, the TikTok star, had 16 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. Going to Cross, Caden Ramsey just picked up a Georgia Tech offer. Big-time playmaker for Coach Wright's bunch, had 3 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. Also had 11 tackles on defense. The Brigade from Dutch Fork. This is a long list, so we'll get it done. Ethan Offing goes 12 of 23 for 252 and 2 TDs. Also had 22 yards on the ground. Maurice Anderson, stud running back, had 15 rushes for 146, 3 touchdowns, and 2 catches for 31 yards. Boykin Bickley out wide, 7 catches, 149, and 2 scores. The defense, Raleigh Salters, the linebacker there, had 10 tackles and 2 TFLs. Michael Steed on the D-line had 8 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss. Josh Smith had 7 tackles, a half TFL. Julian Walker had 6 tackles, 2.5 TFLs. I want to say 2 sacks as well. Daniel Williams, 6 tackles, 2 TFLs. And Elgin Sessions had 5 tackles, 1 TFL, and a pick. The crew from Summerville, Javen Williams, running back, had 22 rushes for 133 and a touchdown. The landlord, Jaden Kelly Murray, sophomore stud here, had 7 catches for 152, 2 touchdowns. Also had a forced fumble on defense. Marvin Leal had 11 tackles, and Tyree Patton had 6 tackles and a TFL. From South Florence, we had quarterback Messiah Jackson, 9 of 11, 134, 3 touchdowns. Also had 14 carries, 1 for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns, 5 TDs for Messiah there. Trey Leonard had 25 carries for 191 and a touchdown. Zion Gilbert had 20 carries for 114 yards. Jaden Sellers had 7 catches, 121 yards, and 3 TDs. And got to give a shout out to that South Florence O-line. They were opening up big-time holes all game. From Westside, man, this is crazy numbers. And these incompletions for Cutter are kind of inflated because he's just throwing the ball up late in this game. Cutter Woods goes 11 for 19, 411, and 6 touchdowns. Kamarius Bomar, his primary target, had 4 catches for 213 yards and 4 touchdowns. My man goes fo like Wendy's. Also had a tackle, a TFL, and a pick in this game. Just an unreal performance by Kamarius. Armani Weaver, 4 catches for 115, a touchdown. Also had 7 tackles, a TFL, and a forced fumble. Jamison Wilson, 20 tackles in this game and a TFL. RJ Livingston had 14 tackles. Drayshawn Evans had 11 tackles, 1 catch, 1 touchdown, 74 yards. Man, these guys were so efficient on the offensive end. Going to Oceanside, QB Aiden Manavian goes 21 of 26 for 326 and 4 TDs. His primary target, Will Virgilio, 5 catches for 134. Terrence Johnson had 5 catches for 57 yards and also had a TD on the ground. Gavin Gaspar had 4 catches for 65 yards and 2 TDs. On the defensive side, Kyle Gilchrist had 14 tackles and 2 TFLs. AJ Arzaka had 10 tackles. Joey Harriet had 10 tackles and 1.5 TFLs. On the BHP side, Marquez Henderson, last time reading this name off, and it makes me want to shed a tear. This is usually 3 games worth of carries. He had 42 rushes, 188 and a TD. KJ Miles had 6 tackles, a half TFL, and a pick. Justin Lathan, 5 tackles, 1 TFL, and a rushing touchdown. On to Northwestern. Finley Polk goes 33 of 39, 427, 4 TDs. probably the MVP of the weekend. Just an outstanding performance by Finley. Cameron Vance, if Finley's not the MVP, it's got to be Cam Vance. 11 catches, 164, and 2 touchdowns, One of those catches, one of the best plays you'll ever see. Should have been on SportsCenter. That's how crazy it was. Jaden Nichols had 13 for 150. Tadarian Knox had 6 catches for 81 yards and 2 TDs. I don't know how we didn't get the most important catch. Daniel Caldwell, that 4th and 15 conversion. We'll get his stats we'll start off the show next year with that. DJ Dowling had 11 tackles for and a half TFL. Daniel Dowling had 11 tackles and 5 tackles for loss. Will Massey had 9 tackles and a TFL. Tamarian Watkins had 7 tackles, 3 TFLs, and a forced fumble. Absolute missile in the defensive backfield there. And Matthew Fish, of course, goes 2 of 2, including the game winner. And then Irmo, another player that I'm going to miss reading his stats. AJ Brand, the state player of the year according to Gatorade, goes 12 of 17 for 151, 2 TDs. Also had 21 rushes for 168 and 2 more touchdowns. Donovan Murph has 8 catches for 123 and 2 touchdowns. Darius Goodson, 8 tackles, 1 TFL. And Ethan Gamble, 8 tackles, 1 tackle for loss.
Great job there, Jerel. Once again, our playoff performers insured by the George Agency. Let's shout out some friends of the program before we wrap up for the day. The George Agency has been serving the insurance needs of South Carolina for over 40 years. They're a full-line insurance agency concentrated in employee benefits and health insurance with an office in Mullins and Murrells Inlet, but they can help you all across the state. They have clients in Greer, Rock Hill, Columbia, and more, so wherever you are, they can help. Give Bradley, Wayne, Richard, and the crew a call or check them out online at thegeorgeagency.net. That's thegeorgeagency.net. Jerel, our Folly Row question, final one of the season. What do you got for us?
Man, this is an easy one to end the season. Again, I want to thank Folly Row for joining us. But here is the question. Kevin, I pose to you, where in the state, a specific location, should the state championship games in football be held?
I would prefer them to be at Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, South Carolina, personally. I think that would be the best option. I think it's just cool, man. I think the kids deserve like the big time experience like that. Like, and nothing against South Carolina State. Like, it's just not as big and nice of a facility as Williams-Brice. And I think they would admit that themselves. Like, people talk about, it's not going to look packed out. Well, how did it look this weekend? Like, SC State is a big enough stadium where it's going to look empty as well. So why not go ahead and do it at Williams-Brice? Let the kids play on the big field under the lights. Move back to Columbia, get in the nice locker rooms. Let's make that happen.
Ding, 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 ding. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. I appreciate you saying that. That is the Movin The Chains campaign for 2025. Get the state championships back to Williams-Brice Stadium. Again, no disrespect to South Carolina State, one of the great schools in this state, one of the great football programs historically in NCAA history. Love that. But we just got to get it there. I mean, these kids, like you said, need to be playing in the big time. They should be playing in the SEC stadium. Geographically, it's in the center of the state, so there's no issues there. And it just feels different. I just think it needs to be there. And this is from an avid Clemson football fan. That's where this needs to be. Williams-Brice is the place. Let's get it rocking. Let's figure out how to do it. You're going to get tired of hearing from me this year because that is going to be mentioned on everything that we do. I'm going to make a hashtag. We're going to get it. We're going to get it there. I think Jerome Singleton might, slap me in the face the next time he sees me. So we're going to get it to Williams-Brice.
I love it, man. That would be a lot of fun for sure. Like I said, it would just be cool for the kids. Like, I've talked to some friends who've gotten to play in Williams-Brice back then. I said, man, it was an awesome experience. Like, they didn't care what the crowd looked like. Like, they just playing there was sick, and I think kids deserve that, man. So hopefully we can make that happen. But Jerel, sad to say we're wrapping up a season here, man. But it's been a great one, a long one, an extra long one. Due to some extensions here, with the weeks and not, man. But it was a lot of fun traveling the state and getting to see lots of big-time matchups and big-time games, but especially this past weekend, man, it just takes the cake.
Yeah, man, it's sad that we've closed out another season, but, I mean, it was a great one, though. I mean, this, obviously we had a little adversity with the hurricane coming through, but this probably is my favorite season covering since I started doing this, man. Just had so much fun. We went to so many great places, met so many amazing people along the way. Just couldn't be more thankful, for the reception that we receive week in and week out and the support that we get for people listening to us talk about high school football, because we do it, out of pure passion and pure love for the sport and the kids and the teams and the coaches, because it is so much fun. But we appreciate you guys, rocking with us. It's been so much fun, and man, it's going to be a long off season, but we got a lot of good content coming your way.
Like you said, Jerel, we'll start up with our ring season recaps here pretty quickly. Try to get some of these head coaches that won state titles on to break down that great run that they've all been on. We'll have our new coaches interview series starting up as well once we get some more of those named. I saw some new jobs pop up today, so a lot of new jobs are going to be flipping around here pretty quickly. We'll start getting those new guys in so you guys can meet them and get to know about their processes and culture and whatnot as well. We'll have I've got tons of video content still from the whole season we've got to put out. Lots of good stuff that we'll have to work through, so it'll be fun. We're not going to go dark for 6 months. Trust me. We'll have stuff coming out. And like as always, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more at Movin Chains. TikTok as well. Jerel, like you said, has been blowing up for us lately. Yeah. Our podcast platforms, Apple and Google and all those places. So definitely check us out on all those. Get your merch, your hats, your shirts, your toboggans, your hoodies. Hopefully have some stickers here soon. We'll work on getting those out for the boys and girls and have those for sale as well for purchase to help us grow the brand and get us, bigger and better things. And like I think we said this on Tuesday, if you guys have any suggestions for the show, let us know. Like if you think, hey, you should do more of this or try this, and we're happy to do it. We're still trying to grow and figure out what people want to see the most of. And if you have an idea for a segment or for a content piece or whatever, we would love to hear it. So definitely reach out and give us that info and help us get the show and make it better and better. Jerel, like you mentioned, it's really cool to see that we can go anywhere across the state now, and there's always somebody who follows the show and wants to say hello, and that was really neat. I had a whole list of folks we got to see down in Orangeburg. Man, it was awesome to talk to all those people from each game, from each team, from each side of it. It was really, really cool. Ton of content creators we got to meet as well and whatnot. But man, just a fantastic experience, and it's really cool to see what we've been able to grow this into so far.
Yeah, just like I said, my overarching thing is thank you. Also, thank you to our sponsors, especially Folly Row, for being the title sponsor of this particular podcast, and obviously Founders for our show as a whole. But just thank them for that. Like I said, parents, grandparents, cousins, uncles, everybody, tell them to subscribe, follow. Again, the off season we stay active. We'll do interviews. Like Kevin mentioned, DMs are open. If there's any content piece that you want us to explore or work on, we are willing to do so, because we want to make sure you guys stay locked in with us and stay locked in on what these teams and programs and kids have going on in the off season, because it always happens, man. We get to this point in the off season to kick it off, and then next thing you know, it's August and we're doing it again. So it goes by quick. And we're here for you. Listen to us because we'll be putting out a bunch of stuff, and we'll continue to work for you guys.
We will. This has been our state championship recap show provided by Folly Row. For Jerel Hendricks, I'm Kevin Thomas. Moving the Chains is always brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Get ready for the ultimate South Carolina high school football experience with Movin The Chains. From previews to recaps, we've got you covered. Dive into our expert preview shows, predicting winners and sharing insights. Then join us post-game for the thrilling recaps, exclusive interviews, and highlights you won't find anywhere else. Plus, connect with fellow fans on our Friday night spaces on Twitter/X. No one covers South Carolina high school football like us. Join us at Movin Chains on all social media platforms and visit movinchains.com today.